Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Hongkongers are assured they can still travel to the mainland, even if their home return permits have expired. John Lee sets May 1st, 2025, as the day when the MPF's offsetting mechanism becomes history. And Jimmy Lai has to wait before knowing whether he can appeal against a government decision to block his appointment of a British lawyer. Hongkongers whose mainland travel permits have expired during the pandemic can still use them to cross the border this year. Beijing made the decision because of the long waiting time for renewals and a surge in the number of travelers to the mainland. Macy Mock reports.
From May the 8th, Hongkongers whose mainland travel permits expired during the COVID crisis can still use them to cross the border without getting a renewal. The National Immigration Administration said the validity of home return permits with an expiry date of between January the 1st, 2020 and December the 30th, 2023 will be extended until the last day of this year. This allows people whose permits have already expired to go to the mainland where they can choose to apply for a renewal. The decision by national immigration authorities is aimed at reducing the long waiting time for at least 1 million people seeking to renew documents that expired when Hong Kong struggled with COVID. The lengthy wait was aggravated by the large number of people wanting to visit the mainland now that the border is fully reopened. This woman said the announcement came too late, as she has been waiting at a China Travel Service office for 2 months for a renewal. This man welcomed the decision, saying it's convenient, adding that his wife too had been waiting for 2 months. According to the China Travel Service website, all 5 of their offices that renew permits are fully booked until September the 2nd. The company warned people not to fall prey to intermediary agents offering slots next month at a cost of up to $350, saying it won't accept bookings made by third parties. Unionist lawmaker Bill Tang welcomed Beijing's announcement, saying it showed that the central government pays attention to Hong Kong's needs. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
The controversial offsetting mechanism in the city's pension scheme will be abolished on Labor Day in 2025. The practice allows employers to dip into their workers' contribution to the mandatory provident fund to settle severance and long service payments. Lawmakers voted last year to scrap the mechanism by 2025. This afternoon, Chief Executive John Lee announced the date when it will become history. Employers will be offered a $33 billion subsidy over 25 years to lessen their financial burden. Labor Minister Chris Sun says the subsidy will be implemented on the same day that the offsetting mechanism is dumped. Apple Daily founder Jimmy Lai will find out in a month's time whether he can appeal against a government decision to block his appointment of British lawyer Tim Owen. The media mogul is due to go on trial in September on several national security charges. Raymond Young reports.
Back in November, the chief executive sought an interpretation from Beijing on whether overseas lawyers can take part in national security trials. The move came after the Court of Final Appeal rejected the government's bid to block British counsel Tim Owen from representing Jimmy Lai. Instead of resolving the dispute, the National People's Congress Standing Committee asked the SAR government to refer to the legislation. The Committee for Safeguarding National Security subsequently suggested that the Immigration Department block Owen's work visa application, effectively denying him entry to Hong Kong. Lai accused the committee of overstepping its powers and sought a judicial review. Security was extra tight outside the High Court today, even though the media mogul did not show up in person. Representing Lai, senior counsel Robert Pang said the chief executive Order Committee, which he also heads, can determine whether an act involves national security, or if certain evidence involves state secrets. He argued all remaining matters shall be left for the court to decide, including the appointment of Owen as Lai's counsel. Government counsel Rimsky-Yoon pointed out that all decisions made by the committee are not subject to judicial review, as stated in Article 14 of the security law. But Pang said when the committee acted beyond its authority, then an exemption should be made based on the principle of rule of law. Chief Judge Jeremy Poon said he needed time to consider the arguments and will hand down a written judgment in a month's time. Lai's trial starts in September, after it was adjourned last December. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
Another group has withdrawn its application to hold a rally on Labor Day. Fei Siu, who heads the Association for the Rights of Industrial Accident Victims, said her group made the decision because it could not fulfill police requirements. Speaking outside government headquarters in Admiralty, she said police asked her to guarantee that the rally would be safe and would not be hijacked by non-members. Siu and other members of the association set up a makeshift monument to mourn workers killed in industrial accidents. Earlier this week, a former head of the disbanded Confederation of Trade Unions scrapped a plan to hold a Labor Day rally. Overseas, at least 12 people have been killed and several injured in the biggest Russian airstrike on Ukraine in 2 months. Most of the casualties were in the central city of Uman, where a missile struck a building, triggering a fire. 10 people were reported killed and 9 injured. A number of other cities, including the capital Kyiv, were also hit. The assault came amid reports that Ukraine is preparing a counteroffensive against Russia. A white woman in the United States has died 68 years after her allegations led to the torture and murder of a black teenager. The gruesome killing of Emmett Till in Mississippi in 1955 fueled the U.S. civil rights movement.
Caroline Bryant Dunham died in the U.S. state of Louisiana from cancer at the age of 88. Her death was a reminder of a life that never got to grow old. In 1955, Emmett Till was 14 and visiting relatives in Mississippi when he was accused by Dunham, then 21, of whistling at her. Days later, Till was kidnapped at gunpoint by Dunham's then-husband Roy Bryant and her brother-in-law, J.W. Millam. They beat the teenager and shot him in the head before wrapping him in barbed wire and dumping his body in a river. The disfigured corpse was found days later. Mamie Till Mobley left her son's casket open during his funeral in Chicago for the world to see. Bryant and Millam were tried for murder but acquitted by an all-white jury. Months later, they confessed to the murder in a magazine interview. Till's murder shocked the United States and added momentum to the civil rights movement. A statue in Mississippi is a reminder of his short, tragic life.
At least 11 people were killed when an overloaded passenger speedboat sank in western Indonesia. A search is continuing for 9 people still missing after yesterday's accident off the eastern coast of Sumatra. Rescuers saved 58 others. Their vessel ran into a log in choppy seas and capsized about 3 hours after leaving Tembilahan. The speedboat was taking passengers back to their homes on an island near Singapore after they celebrated the Eid festival in Sumatra. Mainland investors could switch to Hong Kong, according to an analyst, after Singapore doubled the tax for foreigners buying residential property. Singapore's move came as inflation rose on the back of a surge in property prices. Chloe Fung reports.
In a move regarded by some as drastic, Singapore announced that foreigners purchasing a residential property must pay an additional buyer's stamp duty of 60%. The island state doubled the rate to cool down the red-hot property market and ensure affordable housing. A Hong Kong analyst said the hike was in line with expectations.
I visited Singapore last month, and then they were talking about the inflation of 6%, which is historically high, mainly driven by the rental of housing. Some of the units are even up to 70 to 100% increase in terms of rent. And it is due to the large influx of capital coming into Singapore, looking for parking their money within the Singapore through the residential sector.
Singapore's home prices have surged for 12 consecutive quarters after many ultra-rich Chinese moved to the city during the pandemic. Zhuang believes some Chinese cash could now be diverted to Hong Kong.
Stamp duty of 60% is really significant compared to any other peer cities. So the investors will not really look at residential market as a good opportunity for parking their money. So those money may come back to Hong Kong, look for the opportunity. I believe this will have kind of a spillover impact to Hong Kong.
Zhuang predicts that prices in Hong Kong's secondary market could climb by as much as 7% this year as transactions pick up following the border reopening. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
The near-term potential supply of private homes has jumped to another record high. Around 107,000 units could be rolled out onto the market in the coming 3 to 4 years, according to the government. Of those flats, 18,000 have already completed construction but are unsold, the most since 2007. 1/3 of them have been left vacant for 3 years or longer, as developers are reluctant to sell due to a recent market downturn. Banks have begun releasing their first quarter results, mainly showing slight growth. China Construction Bank, the mainland's second biggest lender, reported a net profit of 88.7 billion yuan, up 0.3%. ICBC, the world's largest commercial lender, recorded a net profit of 90.1 billion yuan, largely unchanged from a year ago. Bank of China Hong Kong registered a 14.2% growth year on year, with $11.3 billion operating profit before impairment allowances. HSBC and Hang Seng Bank will release their first quarter results next week. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed up 54 points. Top 10 active stocks, Alibaba was up 25 cents, Ping An up 50 cents. Tracker Fund was up 6 cents, and Meituan down $1. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.62, Canadian dollar at 5.75. And over in the UK, the London FTSE is currently down 2 points. On to the weather now. Some mist and sunny periods to start the day, followed by a few showers later. Temperatures will range between 22 and 28 degrees. The weekend will see more clouds with bright periods. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Good night.